I get a lot of people asking me how we were blessed to walk away from corporate America in our early 30s. Well, listen, I don't want to keep that a secret. I want to share it with the world. And so maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to figure out, how do I even get started on my journey of entrepreneurship and getting to a level of freedom? Well, text the word freedom to 737 777 9909. Enter your information in, and we look forward to sharing some information with you. A proven system with small overhead, right? That you can do part-time, spare time, right from the comfort of your home, and have amazing mentors, coaches, and a community of entrepreneurs who are willing to support you and help you on your journey to freedom. Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales. Have you ever felt stuck? Have you ever felt like there's got to be more than life than the reality that you see every day? Tune in weekly, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays as we crack the codes to freedom in every area of your life. Welcome to Code Freedom. This is your host, Eddie Bales, and this is episode 150 of the show. And I'm really excited to bring this episode to you because, my wife and I, we were blessed to celebrate 11 years on the 22nd. And I know, January is a pretty busy month for us. I mean, on the 11th is her birthday, on the 14th is my birthday, and then we have our anniversary on the 22nd, not to mention all that goes with starting a new year. And so, but we're excited. We're excited to celebrate. And what I want to do today is share 11 things that I learned in 11 years of marriage, right? And so the first thing is to keep God first. That's always got to be the case. I mean, you want to keep God first in your own life, but you definitely want to keep God first in your marriage. And the reason why, and I'm saying marriage, but I know some of you may be listening, and maybe you have a spouse or someone that you're not married to just yet. But you want to have Jesus or God in the center, in the focus of it, because for me, like, the way I look at my relationship is, just like how Jesus covered. We are the bride of Christ, right? And so Jesus covers us. And so we should be covering our wives. We should be a pillar for them, if that makes sense. And so the same relationship that we have, that Jesus has with the church, I try to compare that same relationship that I would have with my wife. And so you think about um, the situation with Jonah and the whale, and all. Put it like this: you just think about all the times that we as people mess up. We as people just do the wrong things, right? And I'm not saying that we should just be doormats, or I'm not saying that we should just let anything happen. But what I'm saying is, um, you know, things are going to happen, right? And uh, just like Jesus continued to cover the church, we must continue to cover our wives. So there's a scripture too that I love that references that a little bit. First Peter 3:7, and it says, um, it says, likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So listen, I don't want my prayers to be hindered. So make sure that you don't go to bed with an argument still hanging over your head. Talk it out. And so that's number one. That's a whole lot for number one, but that's number one. Okay. Number two, and by the way, a good way to talk it out sometimes is just by writing it down, writing it on a piece of paper, and both parties share what they want to say on paper and then exchange, because sometimes when you're saying it to each other, the feelings get caught up in it, and then the tonality comes into it, and that's when things can go south. So if you can get everything out on paper a lot of times, and not have not you can just think it through without having. You can even say, man, you know what, as I'm writing this, I'm actually wrong in this situation, and you can almost self-correct in some ways, but you can just get all your feelings out, get everything that you want to say out, and make sure it's exactly what you want to say versus how you feel at the time, and then you can't take it away. So anyway, that's a mouthful for number one, but I wanted to share that. Number two is work on you. Be the best version of you so that as you get better, you can be better for your partner. So many times we try to change our partner, but why don't we just focus on us? Like if I become a better version of me, like if I become more patient, then let's just say my wife is having some challenges. Well, my patience can be there to comforting a comfort for the challenges that she may have, right? So be a better you for her. Be a better you for them, I should say. Right? That's the first thing. The second one is be a better you for them. All right. Number three is learn and apply their love language. It's the most important language to them. And this is important because we all receive love differently. And I'm pretty sure I talked about this on this podcast, but it's an important thing. So if you don't know the love languages, you can Google that. You can get the book, The Five Love Languages. And we even talked about it as far as relations to your relationship with people who you interact with, like your kids and maybe business partners. If you knew their love language, I'm not saying, like in the corporate space or the career space, obviously you're going to do it in a professional way, but the point is we all have certain triggers. We all have ways that we receive love and gratification and things of that nature. So I wanted to say that. And so the next one, number four, is continue to date each other, right? Continue to date each other and always spice it up. Like, you know, my wife and I, we raised our nephew, and we don't have a ton of family where we live. So um, you know babysitters is not always the easiest thing, right? But we always have to make it a priority. That means we have to do more planning, to make sure that we set a time aside. I'm sorry, we set aside time to make sure that we are able to date each other. We're able to just go out and just be us, and to just be us, and enjoy each other and things of that nature. So easy. So often it's easy for families, especially when you have kids and you have all kind of situations going on, just to like not go out and just enjoy each other, right? So you need that time. You need time just for you and your spouse to just be able to woosah and be together and to just be you all and then just kind of fellowship and things of that nature. So that's number four. Number five is to give each other grace. Give each other grace. And this is important because no one's perfect. I mean, you know, nobody's perfect, and we all have flaws. We are all scarred. We all have past hurts and things that cause us to be certain ways and all kind of stuff. We all got you know. So there's a lady that says all God's people are jacked up, right? I mean, you're jacked up. I'm jacked up. We're all jacked up if you really think about it in some kind of capacity. So from that standpoint, just give each other grace. It's okay to be able to, just like how God gives us grace. I mean, how is it that God can give us grace, but we won't even give our own spouse grace? Ooh, that's a whew. So we want to make sure that we give each other grace. And that doesn't mean that's a pass for just like anything goes, but on the same token, like for instance, I'll give you an example. Your spouse comes home from work and you could just tell their mood is off and the energy is not really on a high level. Um, and they end up snapping off at you, right? It's so easy, especially as a man, to react to that versus say, man, it seems like you had a tough day at work. And just give them their time, their space sometimes to breathe and to woosah again and to pick themselves up. Because sometimes you just don't know what people are going through sometimes, right? And we are so quick to look at our point of view without looking at the other person's point of view and what they got going on and what's happening in their lives and how they're feeling and things like that. So all that stuff is important, right? Next one is marriage is not a 50-50 situation. It's not, there is no balance. Just like we talked about time, there's no time, there's no balance in time, there's only priorities. There's no 50-50 in a marriage, right? Because sometimes you may have to be the 90 while the other spouse is the 10%, right? And then other times it may be 40-60. But at the end of the day, um, each of you are leaning on each other. One spouse may be going through a really tough time at some point in a certain season, and it's up to the other spouse to be able to pick up the pieces, carry things through in that season, right? And then vice versa, it flip flops, right? So I remember in my entrepreneurial ventures, it was tough in the beginning because um my business had kind of tanked in a short period of time, almost like overnight, and I needed to pick up the pieces, but my wife was able to hold it down for a little bit, and that was humbling as a man, honestly. But understanding that I knew that the chapter didn't have to be the book, right? I knew that I could write the book and that things were going to change because I was willing to change. I was willing to get better and grow and things like that. So of course, we picked our business back up and we just kept on driving it and growing it and things turned out really really well and it's awesome to be able to now pour into my wife's business and pour into my wife and do different things because we were able to complement each other. We were able to strengthen each other in those moments. And I think it's good for your spouse to see you in a down season and also in a good season because that way you grow together and you get through it. You can establish bonds and memories and it's just when you get to a low place, you can reflect back on past moments where you were in low places and got out of it. So I just think that's an important one. That's a lot of it, but that's a lot for that one as well. But I just think it's a good one. So I just want to share that one. The next one is to learn how to resolve conflict. And this is big because like you actually need to understand first off, conflict is going to come, period. That's always gonna, I mean, conflict comes with siblings, conflict comes with family. So if you know it's gonna come with spouse and in relationship and marriage. And so when it comes, you got to be prepared for it. You got to know, how are we going to resolve this conflict? Like, what's our strategy for resolving conflict? And that's what I think is important that a lot of people don't have, is they don't have a strategy to resolve conflict. They just, when conflict shows up, they're, you know, discombobulated because they weren't really prepared for how to handle I'm not saying to look for conflict, but what I am saying is when it comes, because it will come, it's inevitable, that you already have the tools to handle conflict. So I think that's a big one, right? And that's what studying and even matter of fact, that's even worth another episode because you're gonna have to resolve conflict not just in your relationships, but just in life, period. So I think that's worth talking about even more. The next one is listen to respond, not to react. You don't always have to agree, but at least be able to validate feelings. And this is one that I'm still working on. I'm still not the best at this one because it's so easy to feel attacked when feelings may be shared, or something doesn't it does, you don't receive things a certain way, and you're ready to react versus respond. So we have to take a step back, be able to read in between the lines sometimes, or really just be able to listen. And again, you don't have to always agree. Like I may not agree with this, but I understand this is how you feel, right? And that's a tough one. That's a really really hard one because it's almost like you have to put your feelings in a box and be willing to understand their feelings. And man, that's a big one. It's a good one. It's a necessary one. So that was one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in marriage. And I'm still working on that because I am not perfect, right? And no one else is. And so the next one is have a vision for where you want to go. Have a vision for what you want to be. Have a vision for what type of things you want to do. Have a vision for what kind of things you want to have. Like what kind of house do you want to have? What kind of cars would you like to drive? What kind of vacations would you like to take? Like all those things. Have a vision for what your life looks like as a couple. And men, this is especially your job is to have the vision. Your wife's job is to help fulfill and carry out that vision, the helpmate, right? Eve was taken from the rib of Adam. So together they were complete, right? And they were not to compete, but to complete each other. And so, my wife makes me better. My wife makes me stronger. My wife helps me to fulfill dreams that I have, but together we fulfill our own together dreams, if that makes sense. So I just think that's a big one is you got to have a vision. I probably should have started with that at number two, after putting God first, because, what's the point of like, yes, it's great to be in love, but love is, and that's, man, that's probably a bonus one. Love is not just a feeling. Love is about commitment. Like you make a decision and then you keep making decisions every single year. Like every year we're making new decisions to continue to be with each other, to continue to be committed, to continue to grow and work on ourselves and be better for each other. So yeah, that's a mouthful. Like I'm giving you guys a lot of nuggets here. But I just want to make sure that I share these because I love seeing relationships blossom and I love seeing relationships grow. And I hate to see relationships fail. No one wants a relationship to fail. And sometimes it's just tools that were needed to sustain those relationships. So the next one, and I don't know what number I'm on, but the next one is to understand that it's a partnership. You're basically merging two worlds together. You're merging two different experiences, two different perceptions, two different types of pasts, right? And you are trying to put those together, just like a company. Like when a company buys another company and try to merge each other together, like, hey, we do things this way over here, but y'all do things different over there, and it's like putting it together and making it into one. That's a difficult thing to do. And so understanding that, you have to be willing to compromise. You have to be willing to adjust, be flexible, and be willing to be understanding in the sense that, like, look, I understand that this is how you were brought up, but you also have to understand that this is how they were brought up. And it's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's just how that they were raised. It's how that they grew up. It's how they've lived their lives for how many years until before they met you. And it's not just gonna change overnight because they met you. And so, prayerfully, you are when it relates to resolving conflict, you all are able to, um, see eye to eye on certain subjects and concepts and ideas. That's why the resolving of conflict is really, really important because you're going to have conflicting things happen all the time, but you have to know how to handle and move and get through those things. Um, Here's a big one. Don't talk about your wife or your husband to your family, and don't talk about your family to your spouse. And here's what I mean by that. What happens is if you talk down about your spouse, maybe you're in a weak moment or you're in a situation where y'all are in an argument. The first person you call should not be your mama, mom and them, right? Or your dad, and then just start downplaying your spouse because then you're giving your family ammunition and also giving them a perception of how to look at them, and they're gonna see them through the eyes that you painted, through the eyes that the islands that you gave them. They're gonna see things the way you painted the picture for them for. So the goal is like don't talk down about your spouse. Like really, like if there's something situation that's going on, you don't need to have the conversation with your parents. Now, obviously, if it's a serious situation, yeah, maybe you might have the conversation, but the goal is not to like me personally. I won't let any party talk down about my wife, right? And I won't let any party talk down about my family. Now, don't get me wrong, we're gonna have conversations and we're gonna talk about, what's going on and things like that. But my whole point is this is your marriage. And sometimes parents can be overbearing on a marriage. Parents can be over influential in a marriage. And you have to make decisions for you and your family, not based on what your parents think or what your parents say. And sometimes they may think certain things or have certain mindsets to share about your relationship based on things that you shared. So again, that's just a really important thing. I learned that from a pastor of mine that I had, and he said, "Look, I never talk about my wife to my family, and I never talk about my family to my wife." That's what he said, and I'll never forget that. And then the last one, last but not least, oh, that was the last one, right? So I gave you guys quite a bit. I gave you 11 different things that I learned in marriage, and I just think they're powerful. I think they're great, and I pray that they serve you well and that you get a lot of value from it as you're building your relationships with your spouse. And so, thank you guys for listening. Code Freedom. Don't forget to join our Code Freedom Facebook community. We like to have engagement there. And so I'm going to be asking some more questions throughout the year. And I'm going to also have some special guests coming up really, really soon. So stay tuned. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for listening. Definitely feel free to take a screenshot of this episode, tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you find me on social media. I would love to give you a shout out. Hey, you might even get a prize. Who knows? But excited that you had a chance to take a listen. I hope you got a lot of value. And definitely feel free to give us 5 stars as well as a review. Show us some love, and we appreciate you. God bless you all, and see you all over the top.